evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Triple N Talk Show. I am Dr. Nik Nikam. We are delighted you could join us. We have two fantastic programs this evening. During first half of the hour, we are going to be talking about how can we get a GPA of 6.0 instead of 4.0 in high school. Is it even possible? And during second half of the hour, we're going to be talking about magnet school for high school students. This is exactly where we can show you how to get 6.0 GPA instead of 4.0. And my special guest is Dr. Ray Brown. And before we get into the topic, I would like to invite you to download our app, which is NNN Media, where you can watch our interviews live on YouTube and also on Google+. And you can also follow us on our Facebook page, which is NNN or Nik Nikam Network. While you're on YouTube, you can also watch more than 600 video clips we have accenting the days of our lives. Yes, indeed. And today we are going to be talking about a very important topic, and that is how to use your maximum potential starting in high school to become a more productive citizen. And to lay that foundation, we have Dr. Ray Brown. Dr. Brown, welcome to Triple N Talk Show.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown is an internationally recognized expert in having high-performance tennis, utilizing some of the techniques which we are going to be talking about, which is going to be applied to high school students, and we're going to show some of the results that will substantiate his expertise in training students to become what I would say more practical and proficient citizens, in a sense. Dr. Brown, welcome to Nik Nikam Talk Show, and we are delighted to have you. And during this first half of the hour, let's talk about how we can improve the efficiency of high school students in terms of absorbing the material, retaining the material, and using it in a practical manner, just as we adults do. Because when we go to work, we are not sitting there and memorizing what needs to be done. We just automatically do things. And I've been a doctor for almost 40 years, and I don't sit there and look at cardiology textbook every morning. When I go there, when I sit in front of the patient, and every person is totally different. Even though what we learned in textbook, but when it comes to sitting across an individual, it is totally different. And you have the same approach in terms of bringing the best in the high school students. So let's start off by, first of all, I have no idea how somebody can get 6.0 GPA. I thought 4.0 was the maximum grade that they can get in high school.
Well, you've got to be able to distinguish between a school like Thomas Jefferson,
Yes.
which is going to be something like we're going to be building here, and Memorial High School.
Yeah.
Now, how do you make that distinction? Well, you have to give credit for doing something extraordinary.
I see. Yeah.
So you have to add those credits, and they're called, we give them various names, but some sort of proficiency credit,
Yeah.
or outstanding credit, in which will add to their grade point average and actually push it up.
I see.
So we had a great case here recently, an extraordinary person from Thomas Jefferson,
Yeah.
Pooja Chandrasekhara.
Mm-hmm.
She's now a freshman at Harvard,
Yeah.
and she wound up with a grade point average well above 4.0.
Yeah.
But she did a lot of things to get that.
I see.
So if you just do the regular curriculum, you're going to wind up with 4.0. But if you do something extraordinary, then we have to be able to reflect that, because these universities want to see that. Having come from the university community, in addition to other communities, we're looking for students who not necessarily who pass tests well,
Yes.
but who think well and can do something remarkable and practical.
But the thing is, we all been programmed to a certain way of studying or memorizing, or just having some mnemonics to remember things just to pass the test. This is all across the country and perhaps all across the globe. I mean, how do you change this perception of teaching and expect high school students to do so well with these advanced placement classes or some of the things that you did at Jefferson High School?
Well, Jefferson already operates in a very different way. I taught there for myself for a year.
Yeah.
And we don't stand up in front of the class and make a bunch of lectures.
Yeah.
People go to sleep, and that's understandable.
Yeah.
We get the students out of their desk onto their feet, involved with the ideas.
Yes.
And we coach them. We don't lecture them.
I see.
We give them a starting point, and now we're going to see how much can they do of their own.
Yeah.
All the time they're doing something on their own. They're learning in a way that a person who's trying to, learn by rote repetition,
Yes,
can't compete with.
I
And
see.
the research of Ellen, my colleague Ellen Langer at Harvard,
Yeah.
has demonstrated this an extraordinary approach. In fact, she's probably one of the most seminal people in the area
Yeah.
of human learning today.
I see. Yeah.
And so the whole approach has to be changed. And the fact is, the students have no problem making this change.
I see.
And the reason is, you're doing something that's natural to the student.
Yeah.
And so they immediately begin to grasp the ideas, and they actually feel liberated.
Yeah.
Because they now can use their imagination, their individual initiative, their creativity, their ability to explore.
Yeah.
We give them the things that are natural for them.
Yeah.
And when we give them those tools and we don't get in their way
Yes.
unduly, then they just explode. And not only do they learn the material, they become so enthusiastic about what they're learning that they are driven and become driven students. They're
Yeah.
not simply somebody, you got to push them
Yeah.
to do something. They can't wait. When I was at Jefferson, my first weekend there, I was also the tennis coach in addition to being
Yes.
a math coach, the teacher.
Yeah.
I went there on Saturday and the parking lot was full. I thought, well, we don't have classes today.
Yeah.
Well, it was a demonstration of how committed and how involved
I see.
these students had become because of the way, the environment they
Yeah.
were now living in. Now, another thing that really accelerates learning
Yeah.
is the peer group.
I see.
The 1,700 kids at Thomas Jefferson,
Yeah.
before they came there, they come from 5 counties throughout the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
Before they arrive there, they've been in a school where maybe they have one friend.
So this is like a county high school.
It
It's a
is
public high school.
It's called a governor's school.
Yeah.
And the kids who get there are actually drawn from 5 counties.
I see.
The best of the best from 5 counties. Takes 2 bus rides to get to Thomas Jefferson.
I
for
see,
most
yeah.
of them.
Mhm.
I get there in the morning, they're sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
The bus has dropped them off a little early.
Early. Yeah.
But to get those kids out of there, that's really, man, they're going to
Yeah.
stay there. They're so enthusiastic. They just can't wait to be there. And now instead of having one friend, they have 1,700.
I see.
They all think alike.
Yeah.
Their peer group now is about excelling and performing and achieving instead of about, let's go down and go to the movie and watch,
Yeah.
go down to the mall and look at the kids or something like that. They don't think that way. In fact, to see them at a mall, it's a rare occurrence.
That's it.
Once in a while, a little break and maybe they go to the mall. But
Yeah.
for the most part, they're connected to their development, their personal development. They seize control of it.
I see.
And now all we have to do is be aware of, well, when are they getting stuck? And
Yeah.
are they really stuck? Or are they just trying to give you trying to snow you about being stuck? And then you step in and you give them a little nudge.
Yeah.
You give them a little information. So it requires an approach to teaching that is totally different,
Yeah.
has been proven to be successful because look at
Yeah.
the product out of Thomas Jefferson. You look at how many extraordinary universities these kids go to.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching the Triple N Talk Show. I am Dr. Nik Nikam. We are talking about how to get 6.0 GPA while you're still in high school. And also, my special guest is Dr. Ray Brown, who is an expert in training tennis students and also in math, and he's going to tell us how they have extrapolated these concepts to the high school classrooms and bring about a dramatic difference as far as the outcomes are concerned. And we're going to talk about some of these outcomes. If we would encourage you to download our NNN app, that is a Triple N app, so that you can follow us on your smartphones or smart tablets, and also you can follow us on YouTube, which is live streamed simultaneously, also on Google Plus, and you can follow us on our Facebook page, which is Nik Nikam Network. Okay, Dr. Brown, you're talking about how these students are doing differently. Just walk us through like a typical day. How things are done at Jefferson differently compared to a regular school.
Well, I go to class now.
Yeah.
A little bit of background is I'm a renowned
Yes.
person in the field of both neuroscience and mathematics. So it's
Yes.
a little. The tennis was actually a research project.
Yeah.
But the typical day, I'll walk into Jefferson.
Yes.
They will have a homework assignment, and I don't say anything.
Yes.
I'll see them kind of interacting, and because they're interested in being there and learning,
Yeah.
I wait for maybe a minute or two, and all of a sudden, now they want to know something. They want to do something. They are eager
Yeah.
to do something. And so they ask me, well, how do you do problem one?
Yeah.
I say, well, how do you do problem one?
Yes.
I says, I don't
Yeah.
answer questions. I ask questions. You answer questions.
I see.
Is there someone who knows how to do problem one? And now they begin a dialogue. Now, one of the things I make that's very important is that the first answer is a start.
Yes.
It's not either right or wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
It
Yes.
simply starts. And from the first answer or the first idea comes another, and then comes another. And next, they began to interact. And before you know it, everybody knows how to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And anyone can come up to the blackboard if they chose, if we ask them to, and show everybody how to do it. And by the way, we do require that.
Yes.
People have to be able to,
Yeah.
good presenters,
That's right.
because that's the real world. So every kid is required to take their solution.
Yeah.
And I don't care about the answer, by the way.
Yes. Yes.
I'll give you the answer, but I better see excellent technique. I better see excellent discipline. I better see excellent attention to detail. I better see no mistakes,
I see.
or you will do it over until there are no mistakes. And I'll have them present and explain
Yes.
their entire process. They own that. I didn't do a thing.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
I didn't do a thing. And that's key, because when they leave, when they go through a course, and they own the information, it's
I
their
see.
information. So they take a test. To them, that's just another milestone, because when they walk out of the test, they don't forget the material
That's
because they own the material. They're actually capable of teaching other people
Yeah.
the material. Another thing that we require. You actually have to, we'll put people into 3 groups.
Yeah.
Each group will have to solve a problem. And then they have to explain their problem and their solution and the details and the way they went about it and
Yeah.
the discipline. We want to see the discipline in the organization. And so they are constantly thinking. Well, this is exactly what smart people like to do. They have a brain. It wants to be used.
Yes.
If you don't use it, they'll go nuts
Yes.
and do something you might not like them doing.
That's right.
Cause problems at home. So we keep them driven by their own energy, their own enthusiasm.
yeah.
And
This is quite different from most even universities. You know, they just come and start showing the present slides given by the author who wrote the book, and they just go through like 3 hours of reading the slides, something like that. But you are putting these high school students in a driver's seat and having them face their own peers and colleagues
Yes.
and answer. So it's a different concept.
Well, it turns out at a place like Berkeley, where I went,
Yeah.
you do get put in that position.
Yeah, in fact, I was watching a Harvard Business School. I think that this is how they, from day one,
example.
the students are the presenting and the professor is sort of the moderator for the entire duration of the course.
Exactly. That's what it's like at the top of the food chain.
Yeah,
And that's where these kids can be.
I see. Yeah,
I've been exposed through the tennis program, which was this research program.
yeah,
Serendipitously, a very large number of Indian students came through my program, because
see,
Indians
yeah.
love tennis. And these are brilliant people. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, what in the world are they doing going to this ordinary high school?
yeah.
This is a waste of brain power. These people
Yeah.
are extraordinary. So we've got to do something about that. And so we began thinking in terms
Yeah.
of, well, where should these kids go? There's got to be a school here.
Yeah.
And then I looked around, I examined every school in Houston and everything nearby. There's just nothing,
Yeah.
nothing comparable to the top of the food chain.
Hmm.
And what's it like at the top of the food chain? It's a different world. It is a different world. And I try to explain this to people. What Anuj,
Yeah.
Dr. Samal's son, he's a good example.
Yeah.
Got extraordinary memory. You tell him something one time and he comes back and he can tell you everything about it.
So
Ordinary
are
kid.
these programs geared for real geeks or overbearing parents who wants their students, the children, to be overachievers, or this can be extrapolated to average student?
Well, you could extrapolate to average students, but there is one.
Yeah.
There are 2 problems with the average student. First, there's disciplinary problems.
Yes.
Kids come to school and they hate being there.
Yeah.
Second, their peer group.
Yes.
Their peer group will many times will convince them to be a non-achiever.
Yeah.
Even if they are an achiever, pretty
I
soon
see,
in a year's time, they don't think they need to do anything. And so, of course, they're going to be working at McDonald's at the cash register when they grow up, or living with their parents, which is what they don't realize.
So you do need the environment at the school and also at home to be conducive to this sort of what I would say like a high energy or a higher octane learning process.
The parents at TJ are a very important part.
Yeah.
The parent-teacher student associations, not just a PTA, student association. And I met many and knew many of the parents.
Yeah.
They have the first week of school, they have parents' night. And you're there in the evening, and the parents come to your classroom.
Yeah.
And they get to know you, and they ask you questions because they really are interested in how their kids are going to learn.
Is there a name for this type of training for the students?
There should be.
Yeah.
But because if anything is to be really useful, you give it a name.
Yes.
And then you talk about through the name. The best I can call this is from the research I've done with my close colleague at Harvard, Ellen Langer. I call it the Langer Protocol because it's really based on her research. And Jefferson had already discovered a large piece of it.
I see.
But when I went to Jefferson, I had the publisher of Langer's work sent, I think, 30 or 40 copies for free down to Jefferson, and I handed them out to all the students.
Yeah, you mentioned me about her book, Mindful Learning, and I have gone through more than half of that on a Kindle version, and she calls it the mindful learning, where opening up your mind for all different possibilities, not just one, or just sticking to like a narrow linear pathway of learning.
Right.
So it's like a multi-dimensional approach to looking at the problem and looking at the different options and different solutions.
If you think about that in terms of paleoanthropology, that's how the human being evolved.
Yeah.
We've been around roughly 2.73 million years from the earliest beginnings.
Yeah.
And how did we learn? Was there any school? There was no school. We couldn't even speak until roughly 100,000 years ago. Now 2.7 million years, 100,000 is pretty small.
It's fascinating because on Facebook, people put all kinds of video clips, and some of them are by animals and birds.
Yeah.
When I sit there and watch, I said, these birds are smarter than human beings.
Exactly.
Because they find 10 different ways to find a solution to a problem they are stuck in. But we are all trained to just think in one linear fashion.
And so the teachers are actually unlearning.
Yeah.
Or programming, actually taking away the individual's initiative and their own creativity. And that's a big mistake. Now, that has a history to it. It goes back to parochial education 1,000 years ago or more. But what we do when we do that is we usurp the individual's ability to do what comes natural to them, which is explore and adapt. If you teach something in a linear fashion, it's unadaptable.
Yeah. Everybody who is listening may be thinking, there's too much talk and there's no proof. So we'll come back to the proof. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching the Triple N Talk Show, which is being live video streamed to YouTube and Google+, and you can also watch it later on. And while you're watching, we would recommend you to download our app, which is NNN Media for Android or Apple devices. So you can follow us around the clock. And while you're on YouTube, you can also follow more than 600 video clips we have accenting the days of our lives in many, many different topic spheres of our culture, heritage, and all these things. My special guest is Dr. Ray Brown, who is an expert in looking at what I would say a practical approach to improving a student's performance and improving their grades beyond 4.0 for high school students. Okay, let's talk about the proof. You were mentioning about the Jefferson High School results, and let's talk about some of these results as how effective this type of training program has been on the students, their grades, and their ultimate goal, that is to be selected by top universities in the country.
Well, there are two basic sources of proof that we have here. The most basic and fundamental is, what is the output of Jefferson?
Yeah.
Where do the students go? They're all into top colleges, but how many went to Berkeley? Well, 22. How many went to Rice? It was a bundle there. How many went to Harvard? How many went to Princeton? 19
Yeah.
people went to Princeton. You go down the list of the extraordinary universities, you'll find Jefferson put more than 10 people
Yeah.
in 1 year.
I see.
That's 1 year to those schools. So that's one form of proof. Proof is in the pudding. These
Yeah.
kids perform. The second line of proof is much more difficult.
Yeah.
We began a research project in 1996 with Berkeley.
Yeah.
Another associate of mine, a very close associate, Professor Walter Freeman, he's an MD, PhD.
Yeah.
And it was on a re-examination of how the brain works and what we call the neuron doctrine versus the gliocentric doctrine. So over 16, 20 years, he and I have worked together.
Yeah.
And again, he's another close personal friend. And what we did is say, how are we going to verify this? How do we take the equations of the dynamics of the brain
Yes.
at the local mesoscopic level? How do we translate that into somebody doing something that a normal human being does?
Yeah.
And you don't interfere with it, because if you interfere with it,
Yeah.
you've disturbed. It's like the Pauli exclusion
Yeah.
principle. You've actually interrupted this process. So we hit on this idea. We're going to take a sport
Yes.
and pick the sport that most closely replicates a primitive environment of 10,000 years ago.
Yes.
It's got to be eye-to-eye combative sport
Yes.
that embodies fear, intimidation, pain.
Yes.
Well, it turns out that tennis is that
Tennis,
sport.
yeah.
Tennis is the perfect sport for that. So now we said, all right, we're going to translate this stuff. It's coming out in a book January 6th. It's not a readable book. I can send you my mathematical paper.
Yeah.
It's not readable. I'm not even sure that the tennis paper was very readable.
Yeah.
But what it did is I said, all right, since I know both the neuroscience and the real world, because I spent most of my life dealing real problems, real world problems in the intelligence service. Okay, I'm going to make this transcription. That was no small problem.
Yeah.
It took 16 years
Yeah.
of working to iron out all these details and to put together a program in such a way that we have what's called the passive observer protocol. We have to simply act like a regular tennis program.
Yeah.
It will survive or fail on the basis of the market, that is its performance.
Yeah.
You cannot interfere. You cannot say this is a research program, because we're not a research program.
Yeah.
We're a tennis program.
Yes.
Then the instruction has to be built off of what's called a K3 model, which is embodied to a great extent in Langer's research at Harvard. These two different coasts have come together with a different language. And I know both of them. So now we translated that into practice.
Yes.
What does this mean? What does mesoscopic components mean? I'll give you an example. Conventional tennis is template based. Take the racket back, step, swing, check, feet, balance, fragmentation, follow through, and all that stuff. That's a template.
Yeah.
That's not adaptable. The human brain doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
What it works from is relevant components. So we said, well, what are the relevant things that have to happen? Well, the racket must contact the ball.
Yes.
That's the first thing. And then we explain that. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What else is going? Nothing's going to happen until the ball gets struck by the racket. Then we stand back and see, what does the student do with this?
Yes.
What you'll find right away, they'll do several successful hits, and then they begin this exploration process. At that point, a conventional program would say, stop, go back and do what I told you.
Yes.
In which case, the entire creative process ceases. That's the same thing as being in a math class and seeing a person go down the wrong way and say, stop, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Let them struggle with it.
Yeah.
Give them, because part of that movement, part of that digression you see is actually a logical process we have inherited from evolution to explore our environment, to try out different ideas. And so we step out of the way, let that happen. Mm-hmm. We don't interfere. So there's an example, which what we did was give them the opportunity to understand what is a basic contact, and we give them some physics. You know, you got to keep that racket moving in a straight line, all right? That's like pool.
Yes.
Then we allow them to explore. And we do not criticize. You do not place a value on what would appear to be a mistake, which is more an experiment. Mm-hmm. And so all of the actions are experiments. They're all explorations.
Yes.
So consequently, it goes on. It's much more difficult than that. I mean, much more detailed than that. It's in, it'll be coming out in a book on brain dynamics in January. But we allow them to do that, and now we need metrics.
Yes.
We're scientists. We're not tennis
Right,
players.
yeah.
I didn't play high school tennis. I didn't play college tennis. I never even saw tennis tennis racket until I was 30 some odd years old. So we're scientists. We have to have a metric. And we look around and say, well, what's going to be the metric? It can't be our opinion.
Yeah.
It's got to be an objectively measurable standard that is available to everyone.
That's true.
The USTA, thankfully, has formal tournaments.
Yeah.
And in those tournaments, the results are recorded on the web for anyone's consumption. And so now there's a company called International Management Group that goes further. And it says, well, a single tournament doesn't mean anything. It's how you stack up relative to all the other players in the entire nation. It's called Relative Performance Index. They produce a Relative Performance Index. Okay, now that is a true objective. It has taken out the noise. So now I take the Relative Performance Index and I look at what we've done with our program, and then we transfer it. By coincidence, we happen to transfer an extraordinarily great student. Her father got impatient and wanted him, thought, you know, he could do even better. She moved to another program and she flatlined and never recovered. The girl, never, extraordinary student. She was headed to UCLA. She's at Howard University. In terms of academic excellence and her opportunities, her father essentially took everything away from her. So that, without naming her, just like in any medical profession, we don't give names.
I know.
Her Relative Performance Index, the extrapolation is all in that textbook. We had 2 such cases that were ideal. Then we had another interesting case. A child comes to us with a tumor on the brainstem. The mother takes him out of the hospital. The doctor says, you take him out of the hospital, he'll die. She brings him to us. We don't say we're in the business of experimenting. We're not. We're in the business of teaching tennis. So his name is Dan Tatalescu. He's actually listed in the book. His picture of hitting a tennis ball and his MRIs are both contained right there in that paper. And so Dan, when he started out, if you toss him a ball, it would hit him. He couldn't even get out of the way. But we're approaching this the same way if he had to survive in the wild. He's got the very same parameters to deal with. The instinctive parameters, and we don't interfere with that. Well, maybe 12 months later, he's playing a formal, sanctioned USTA tournament, and he wins the first round. He is so good that you just think, well, this can't be sick. Can't be sick. Absolutely impossible. Turns out, he's got the brain tumor. There's the MRI. Look at it. And we have 2 pictures right there in the book. And so I took a photograph of him hitting a ball out of the air in a tournament, which would have been extreme challenge because previously the ball would hit him. He hits the ball out of the air in the tournament. I have that photograph. I put the MRIs right on there, and you have direct access to this information. Then we have a guy who loves motocross, and he blows out his knee in motocross. The prognosis was you were going to need surgery. Okay, he comes to us. We happen to know him. He says, okay, we're going to do this with no surgery. We put his MRI, you can see it's pretty messed up, and he is hitting a fine ball because after 4 or 5 months through this process, doing things exactly according to K3 theory and Langer, he recovered his full range of capability.
That's fascinating
surgery.
Because I was looking at some of the stats from that Jefferson High School, you know, the one which used your method of approaching teaching for students and all this. I see there like SAT score, for example, 2014, 755 in mathematics, which is way above the national average of 501. And in critical reading, it is like 711, which the national average is like 492. And writing is like 716, where the national average is 748. So definitely, I can see these programs have made a tremendous impact not only on individual students, but also as an aggregate to raise their level of SAT scores, and obviously, a lot of the students did go to top-notch universities, and that's what we are really trying to get at it. So, ladies and gentlemen, any other thoughts before we switch gears and come back and talk about magnet school for high school students here in the Houston area? Any other thoughts about? Okay, I wanted to mention about Miss Ellen Langer, who
Yes,
is
Ellen
the
Langer.
author of the power of mindful learning. She's a Harvard psychologist, and he's been involved in this research for more than 40 years. And you can get this book on Amazon.com. It's called the Power of Mindful Learning, and it costs less than $10. You can get a Kindle version, and probably it's about 140 pages, and gives a lot of great insight into a totally different approach to all aspects of life, not only just education, or it can apply to music, it can apply to sports, it can apply to even how we interact with other people, or how we assess our own life and our businesses. In a sense.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching the Triple N Talk Show. I am Dr. Nik Nikam, and my special guest has been Dr. Ray Brown, who is an expert on enhancing student performances, not only in tennis, but also in at the high school level, in getting their grade point averages beyond 4, 5, maybe even 6. So we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Magnet High School for high school students. Stay tuned.